I just saw your video about the goggles. About goggles, but it was 2 years ago. What do you think is the best goggles to buy today? Asks Hakuna. Hakuna, that's a great question. I think today, if you're shopping for goggles, it used to be that you would pick your video system based on the goggles. And today, I don't think that's the case. Today, I think you should pick your video system based on the qualities of the video system and then buy the best goggles you can buy that work with that system. So the 4 video systems are Analog, HDZero, DJI, and Walksnail. And they all have different pros and cons, which would take 45 minutes to get into the deep pros and cons. Maybe I should remake that video. In short, Analog is the cheapest. Analog has ultra low latency. Analog can go very long range because you can get 10-watt analog VTXs because all of the analog hardware is decades old and is just a commodity. So somebody's like, I want to make a 5-watt video transmitter. They just make it. Somebody else is like, I want to make a 10-watt video transmitter. They just make it. So analog is good for long range. It can have high power. It's inexpensive, although it can get expensive if you buy high-end stuff. Analog has the worst video quality. It's standard definition. It's like screen rolls and static, but it definitely gets the job done. Analog very good for racing as well, but very poor image quality compared to digital systems. HDZero, essentially analog on steroids. Slightly better, noticeably better image quality. Fantastic latency, great for racing, more expensive, and not quite as good for long range because they have a 1-watt video transmitter, and that's it. Only HDZero makes these video transmitters, and they haven't released a 10-watt one, probably for regulatory reasons. It's not actually legal. But Analog, who cares? Some Chinese company's just going to make a 10-watt video transmitter. Good luck coming after them. So HDZero not quite as good for long range because it doesn't have high output power. Great for racing. Not that great for like freestyle and general use, in my opinion, because for general use, the ultra low latency that is HDZero's real strong point, unless you're like a racer who really cares about low latency or a freestyle pilot doing really precise proximity moves, the higher latency of the other systems is still enough to get the job done, and they have other advantages in terms of image quality, range, and penetration. Say it's HDZero. Really great for racing, the choice for racing, and it's hard to think of anywhere else other than racing where HDZero is just definitively like, that's the one you should get. DJI, absolute best image quality, range, penetration, hands down. I will fight you if you disagree. There's people out there who say Walksnail has better image quality than DJI, and I'm like, are you insane? Are you okay? But that's just me. The most expensive, although not by as much as it used to be, as everything else has gotten more expensive too. The main downsides of DJI are that if you don't like what DJI gives you, screw you. You go in the restaurant and they say you can have steak or you can have chicken, and you're like, but I want fish, and they're like, sorry. They give you the steak, and it's the best steak you ever ate, but you wanted fish, right? That's DJI. Bug fixes? Maybe. Sometimes. Also, sometimes they just ignore you. Feature requests? With Analog and HDZero, very responsive to feature requests, bug fixes, very connected to the community, very, even Walksnail. DJI, the least of that, although some of that. And, of course, there's people who don't like DJI as a company or their political affiliations, potentially. People see ideological reasons not to buy DJI. Absolute best range, penetration, image quality, and overall user experience. But like, if you fly iNav and they didn't support the iNav OSD for years, they didn't support iNav OSD, and you were like, you might not feel so good about it. And then Walksnail, like DJI Lite, if you will. Walksnail is as good as DJI was 3 years ago. That's the way I would sum it up. Sorry, Walksnail. Walksnail has a much larger variety of cameras and video transmitters. So, for example, Walksnail has a low light camera you can use. DJI, you got one camera. That's it. Don't like it? Too bad. Suck it. Walksnail, you can choose a low light camera. You could choose all these different, you have 4K recording. There's a lot of variety in the Walksnail video transmitters and cameras that DJI doesn't have. But the performance isn't quite as good. It's almost as good. If DJI didn't exist, Walksnail would be like, the people would be like, ooh, Walksnail, you're doing great. Walksnail is like the B- student whose sibling gets A+ all the time. Walksnail comes home with their report card and they're like, Dad, I got a B-. And Dad's like, why are you not like your son, like your brother? He got straight A's. Yeah, plenty.
Can I say, but it's also like the B student is in extracurriculars, so the A+ student has decided to join extracurriculars as well, right? Because it's like Walksnail is kind of pushing DJI's development, right? Like,
absolutely.
You mentioned iNav OSD. DJI just patched in iNav OSD natively.
Yep.
Like, there was an update like days ago. So it's like, you know, these things do happen eventually, but I think a lot of these things would not have happened. Like 1S DJI, cheap box goggles might not have happened without Walksnail existing.
Right.
I think that's
the 04 Lite is a direct response to the Walksnail 1S video transmitter. Before the 04 Lite, DJI didn't have a 1S capable video transmitter. It was just the big heavy 03, and suck it, you get what we give you. And Walksnail, I think, pushed them to do that. Absolutely. The Goggles N3, an inexpensive box goggle for the DJI system. Walksnail pushed them to do that. I think that if you only give a shit about your user experience, you'll buy DJI. But if you care about other things, like you want to reward Walksnail for being the one to make the move first, even though they aren't quite as good. They're out there, they're listening, they're doing things like the color OSD they supported. They had a 1S VTX years ahead of DJI. They're out there, they're actually paying attention, they're doing the thing, and then 2 years later, DJI comes along and is like, oh, you guys wanted that? Okay, here. And they shit out a product that's 50% better than anything Walksnail ever did. And people are like, yeah, DJI, thank you. And Walksnail's like, do we get anything for like actually having done the work? And some people are like, yes, Walksnail, I'm not going to reward that behavior. And other people are like, I don't care. I just want a good product. And I go both ways. I see it both ways. So that's the 4 systems. You're going to pick one of those systems. And then your choice of goggle is easy. You buy the DJI system, you're going to get the G3 or the N3. That's basically it. Or maybe the G2 or the Integra. But like you're just going to pick one. You buy Walksnail, you're going to get the Goggles X. Or maybe the Goggles L if you can't afford the Goggles X. But like, it's not which is the best goggle, it's which is the best video system for me. And then your choice of goggle is relatively small. The other thing, Render has a good point. I'll close on this. Although Walksnail absolutely deserves credit for the things that they do, they also promise way more than they deliver. Walksnail is constantly like, hey guys, we're going to do this thing. And then like, they don't do it. Or years later, they do it. Like I'm thinking of the Android app for their goggles. It took over a year after their goggles were released with promise for app support to release this Android app. Maybe significantly more. I'm not sure how long it was in real life. I'm sure it was more than a year. Or they'll be like, hey guys, we're going to have an updated video system in August of 2024 that's going to have even better range and penetration. Peeps, crickets. Or they release a product and it has some flaw, like the overheating. The Goggles X overheated when they first released, and they had to do all these recalls. And to their credit, they usually get it right eventually, but like they definitely have some missteps. So nobody's perfect. All right. DJI planned obsolescence. Yeah. With DJI, you're going to get 4 or 5 years out of your hardware, and then DJI is going to stop supporting it, basically. And then you could keep using it, but if you need to buy any new hardware, you're screwed. Anyway. And it's like, and I find myself thinking, okay, Walksnail, you have this sort of moral high ground where you're making these moves, and you're doing what's good for the community, you're releasing, but like, how many times are you going to like release a flawed product or say you're going to do something and then not do it before people, you burn up that goodwill and people are like, screw it, I just want a product that works, and they go buy DJI. Yeah, okay.